Hey everyone, Stephen here. Something a little bit different for today's video, and it'll be a balance talk. I'll be discussing my opinions on the current balance and how I would change the game for the upcoming 2.1.0 patch, which is set to be released on June the 24th. The second anniversary 2.0 series patches have been positively received by most of the community, with the introduction of new heavy tank battle groups from the Fire and Steel DLC. However, some issues with the present balance can result in stale gameplay and limiting the mechanics that make CoH a rewarding RTS game to play. In this video, I'll be sharing my personal opinion on the balance and offering suggestions on how it can be improved moving into the future for the 2.1 patch and beyond. The main discussion points will be adjusting the mechanics, units, and abilities that are overperforming or resulting in that stale gameplay from each faction, such as damage reductions, cloaking, and community-accepted balance changes. Hopefully some of these identified issues and suggested changes will reap greater rewards for the teching player by widening the window of opportunity for medium tanks to punish the players that go for no tech at all or heavy tank stall strategies. So what is the teching issue in 1v1 that's been affecting the game? The 2.0 series patches have seen a rise in builds of maintaining a high tempo by prioritizing quantities of low-tech investment units and abilities, which enables players to put a high amount of pressure on their opponents for minimal technology cost, or low command point battle group selections. Basically, you're going for more of a quantity approach over quality. For US forces, this looks like making use of the Tier 2 Weapon Support Center building with an army composition centered around the ever-durable 30 cal heavy machine gun with scouts, engineers, more 30 cals, bazookas, and a half-track spam to round things off with no further teching required until a perishing tank arrives. For Wehrmacht players, this looks like teching to Tier 1, getting a bunch of grenadiers out, rushing the 221 scout car, then following up with Jaegers with Panzerschrecks, Verbal Vins and Martyrs, maybe sneaking in the 251 half-track SOS troop and call in via the breakthrough battle group and just waiting until the Tiger tank arrives. There are variants of these strategies that can be performed with other battle groups, but it comes with no surprise that heavy weapons battle group and breakthrough battle group were repeatedly vetoed out in the most recent CoH3 1v1 Metaplayers tournament. These are definitely the strongest strategies going around at the moment, and they are plaguing the auto match ladder. British forces and DAC have got more stepping stones along their way due to their tech structures to reach the more potent all-purpose units, and they need to use a range of light vehicles to survive in combination with support weapons. So the counterplay for the most part feels fairer balance-wise, and the lower lethality of the Tier 0 and Tier 1 tech structures that those factions can offer. There are still standpoints with those factions that require some balance, but it's more unit specific as opposed to a whole tech structure or approach to the game. So I'll get to those factions a little bit later on. But these US and Wehrmacht builds, which have been the mainstay strategies on auto match and even in tournament match, these builds make it risky to tech to medium tanks, as the teching player will be at a military disadvantage by a couple of units. And when that medium tank does come out, whether it's a Panzer IV or Sherman, it won't compete against the high-quality, low-tech light vehicle units anyway, or in combination with some elite infantry like Jaegers or those bazooka squads, which do become elite once they stack on a bit of veterancy. It really showed in the recent Metaplayers tournament where I feel we saw so many of the same games being Tier 1, Tier 2 Wehrmacht versus Tier 2 US, simply because it's the easier and safer way to play. For so many players, casters and viewers of co-casts, there is a timeless beauty of Company of Heroes where we're seeing an early game play out where riflemen are trying to flank MG42 positions, and unfortunately that's becoming more of a rarity nowadays. And higher level players are saying this, it's simply easier to play with 30 cal heavy machine guns because their durability is so forgiving. Adding that element of risk, seeing flanks, seeing hard-hitting pushes with riflemen, and maybe they hit a wall of an MG42 and very promptly forced to retreat. Those are the high-stakes, high-reward maneuvers that we want to see, not a MG from a 30 cal that's super durable, can take a grenade to the face, take some small arms fire, and just pick up and be on its merry way. Whilst patch 2.05 introduced some fuel change costs and CP increases to mitigate this, it hasn't caused enough of a shift in a stale metagame. My suggestions are to alter what enables the longevity of the low-tech stall strategies such as damage reduction, cloaking, and some more changes to faction-specific units. Let's explore the issues I've identified and my solutions on how to promote more enjoyable playstyles. Damage reduction. Flat damage reduction on units lowers the counterplay options in both 1v1 and team games. Units with passive flat damage reductions include the US Forces 30 cal heavy machine guns, the mergeable Stoßtruppen from Wehrmacht, and the Guastatori from DAC. Damage reductions means they take percentage reduced damage from any source, whether it's small arms fire, flames, or explosions. At present, they can absorb so much damage in time from the opponent that it makes it irritating for the opponent to deal with. The best strategies for USF are based around the 30 cal heavy machine gun, and for Wehrmacht, it's based around the Stoßtruppen half-track call-in and merging into that Stoßtruppen squad all day long and making full use of the damage reduction properties. All these units have a clear anti-infantry role, so I believe making them vulnerable to vehicles and explosives is a logical choice. My proposed solution is to reintroduce armor back into the game so that flamers and explosive weapons can punish the mentioned units if they are placed in a poor position rather than being easily forgiven, relocated, or merged into. Armor only reduces small arms fire. Flame and explosive damage does full damage to units with armor values above 1. So it provides counterplay, albeit at an increased learning curve to the game, but so be it, just have an extra tooltip icon present on those units. Relic have made it clear that they want all heavy machine guns between factions to be distinguishable, where the Wehrmacht MG42 is known for its suppression and the US Forces 30 cal is known for its durability. Durability from small arms fire is evident, as at mid-range it takes on average 5 seconds extra to take out a 30 cal heavy machine gun compared to an MG42 under tests. And this is true whether it's riflemen or grenadiers that are attacking that unit. And I can accept this design methodology, but what I do not agree with is damage reduction, reducing damage to grenades, flamers, and explosives on these units. Successfully aimed grenades should always reap positive return, but this is not the case for damage reduction infantry. When a grenade lands on an opponent, it can sometimes take minimal effect, and it can feel very disheartening when you see that occur within a battle. A grenade-invested flank that is not evaded should always be rewarded for the flanking player, but this is not the case with damage reduction units. At present, grenades have a lackluster impact versus these damage reduction units, especially when stacked with some veterancy bonuses. Let's have a look at an example of a successful flank from a rifleman on an MG42. The whole process is complete in under 15 seconds. We can see that this is the same if a grenadier flanks an MG42. I believe this is what it should be expected from all factions for a mainline infantry squad flanking and closing the gap on an exposed support weapon with a grenade.
Let's go, Grenadiers! Pick up the pace! We march, Grenadiers! Quit your business! Good work, Kinder! HMG down!
Now, let's compare that with the 30 cal heavy machine gun at Vet 1, which gets the 25% damage reduction and an extra 40 HP. The whole process takes about 20 seconds. These extra 5 seconds allows for more reaction time and additional aid from adjacent forces. Not to mention if there are multiple 30 cal heavy machine guns, this engagement time and grenades cost will take its toll on the Axis player. Even the Grenadier in-game voices agree it takes too long.
About damn time.
At Vet 3, the 30 cal damage reduction scales up to 55% and an extra 100 HP. It takes a comical 33 seconds for the Grenadiers to win this fight. It's simply too long for a grenade utilized in an engagement. US Forces players know this, can play pretty arrogantly or sometimes even ignorantly. They can take the grenade and small arms fire to the face because they know time is on their side. I understand Relic want to have durability on the US heavy machine gun, but flat damage reduction is not the way to go about it. Swap the damage reduction out with a low armor value and it will allow grenades, mortars, vehicles, the natural counters to these damage reduction units to have a fairer role and counterplay. Similar for Stoßtruppen and Guastatori, it will force a retreat sooner on misplaced elite infantry. This will cause a greater manpower loss or territorial loss for players relying on damage reduction units as their bread and butter in tech stall strategies. Camouflaged units. Camouflage, which is sometimes referred to as cloaking or concealing, is the ability for units to become invisible to the opponent and when revealed often first strike with a combat bonus. This is a good mechanic as it creates gameplay of unsuspecting timed ambushes, but it can become a source of frustration to counter. Next, Assault Flare, going for a really aggressive push, and I'm just going to put my anti-tank on here aggressively as well. Keep these commandos. Is there yellow cover? Yeah, I'll get them cloaked. And get them cloaked in there. And hopefully, trigger a nice little ambush. Yeah, perfect. At present, the game does not strike a good balance with cloaking, and most players find it frustrating. It is too common, easy to activate, quick, and has minimal drawbacks. I can see the frustration in new players when a yellow cover loaded map gives easy camouflage to 4 blob Shrek Jaegers that can move from cover to cover, over screen lengths distances, and instantly destroy an unsuspecting light vehicle or medium tank. Even at top level play, Camouflage MG42s with Terror Battle Group bring a huge gamble element to the game. Camouflage MG42s moving around the map at the start of a game cloaked through cover is a huge game breaker. It's pretty easy on a lot of the 1v1 maps to get an early MG42 to a threatening position on an opponent's fuel in an invisible state, such as this example on Lungres, where I can easily travel over half the map jumping from cover to cover. Often when my opponent has Terror Battle Group in their loadout, I'm asking myself questions like, is there an MG42 there? Can I cap this point safely without getting ambushed? At the start of the game, when a player only has a couple of squads on the field, this is not a fun decision-making process, and it makes games feel literally like a luck coin flip. Even if I review the game in the replay state after that, I just think, I couldn't have really done anything else there. I had to cap that point. If they're there, they're there. Or if I went to the left and they went right, or vice versa, it may have been a different scenario. Forcing a player to make a Jeep just in case because my opponent has Terror Battle Group in their loadout is a trivial thought process. My solution is to change the speed of camouflage units based on the unit type and their role. At present, the majority of units that have camouflage units can move around at full speed, and this can be observed in the following table. The number of units that have availability to elite camo, which provides full speed movement, should be reduced. I believe units with full speed camouflage should be reserved for units that have a dedicated single purpose role. Anti-everything units that have anti-infantry and anti-tank capabilities such as the Jaegers and SSF commandos should not be able to move at full speed. Camouflage via micro-drain toggle ability at reduced speed, similar to what happens with the pack and the LG40 or the scout squads when camouflage, should be applied also to those all-purpose units. This is a serious problem, especially in team games once the map starts to become saturated in yellow cover from artillery strikes, and it just leads to an encouragement of spamming these anti-everything units, which results in stale gameplay. In particular, the Jaeger-Verbal-Wind combination, which can counter literally everything aside from the heaviest of tanks. Units that serve the purpose of one role, such as a strictly anti-infantry sniper or a Panzerjäger anti-tank unit, are reasonable to move at full speed at camouflage states. I'm aware that Fallschirmjägers and Commandos have a snare. This snare still needs to be used in combination with combined arms to result in a kill. For this reason, I think they should still have the full speed movement considering they are battle group selected units. Finally, the MG42, because it comes out so early, I believe the MG42 should only be cloaked when it's stationary preemptively placed in an ambush position, or alternatively, if it has the toggle cloak and a low 10 munitions upgrade cost, then it could move around the map at a reduced speed similar to the pack. The munitions cost will allow for the ability for the Jeep counterplay to safely roam without a mine threat when multiple MG42s are identified, but also it still gives the option for the Wehrmacht player to get out an MG42 with cloak early, and it improves the strategic flexibility within the game, but it limits how much that cloaking could be used in the early game. Another idea to consider is that cloak units, when they're revealed by recon abilities such as a flare or recon run, that they are debuffed. And that debuff could be 2 or 3 second speed reduction to punish them if they are out of position, and not being allowed to cloak for 45 seconds after that. The suggested changes to cloaking would increase the skill ceiling in using cloak with all-purpose units, because it will make players use the toggle ability as opposed to just it automatically coming into effect on Jaegers and SSF commandos. And it enables players facing cloak units to have more confidence to make attacking plays. This would alleviate the stall strategy metagame that's dominated by Shrek Jaegers to a heavy tank stall, and relieve frustration of many players when versing cloaked units, while still allowing cloaked ambushes to give some creative nature to play. Now, I'm also just going to list out some faction and unit specific changes I'd like to alleviate the gameplay that's occurring. So for US forces, the 30 cal heavy machine gun damage reduction changed to armor instead. The Pershing, it's the most dominant heavy tank. It has to have its speed reduced. At the moment, its speed is 5.85, and I believe it should just be toned down to 5.25, which is the same as medium tanks like the Panzer IV. It doesn't make sense that a stronger tank can have a better gun and a higher speed than everything below it. It just makes no sense, and it's why it's such a dominant heavy tank. For UK forces, I think the 2-pounder anti-tank gun at Vet 1 needs to be aligned with the blinding shot from the Stummel or the 75mm half-track from US. Make the blinding shot just do a 100% vision reduction and disable the weapon, lasting for 5 seconds. It doesn't have to reduce the speed and disable the main gun, which is what it presently does. For Canadian shocks, the grenade needs to be toned down. I'm all for lethality, but the area is huge. I've wiped so many squads as collateral damage that I didn't think it should affect. It's over the top. The other thing that I'm really noticing is with the British Forces Australian Battle Group with over-repair. Especially in team games, I'm noticing there's a lot of scenarios where players are waiting to build up a huge Crusader mass, waiting for a time to strike, continually repositioning with over-repair present, and then diving with over-repair. I think over-repair should decay over time, maybe around 60 seconds and then or to 90 seconds, and then it has to be over-repaired because it should decay to 0, because it's not always possible in team games due to the size of the map to constantly maintain pressure to deny the opponent the opportunity to over-repair, which this can be done in 1v1s, but not team games. It's purely due to the size of the map. So I feel that has to be nerfed to help out team game players. For Wehrmacht, keep the cloaked MGs at 0 CPs, because it does diversify the early game, but give it a low munitions cost, even if it's just 10 munitions. This gives risk to Wehrmacht players as they will have to give up mines, allowing for a Jeep or a Dingo timing window to be more aggressive. And for Wirbelwind and Jaeger combinations, I wouldn't change Wirbelwinds. I would keep them as they are, but reduce the ability of the Jaegers, whether that's through cloaking through the suggested changes. The other option is to also make a Jaeger squad when purchased be a 4-man squad, and then when it's upgraded, it remains as a 4-man squad to reduce the durability of the Shrek squad. But when you upgrade it with the scope G43 rifles, then it becomes a 5-man squad. I believe though, if this was to be done, there would have to be some pricing adjustments made to the Jaeger squad, especially if it's coming out with a reduced combat effectiveness at 4-man. For DAC, the changes I'd make, it's mainly based around the grenade launcher. So reducing the grenade launcher's effectiveness when shooting from a moving 250 half track by slightly reducing the accuracy. The other change I'd make is to increase the aim time of a grenade launcher ever so slightly, so that it gives the allied player the chance to focus fire down the squad with the grenade launcher before they have to move to dodge the grenade. This in turn will allow the Axis players' squads to focus fire that allied squad that's just displaced out from their own cover position. But I feel this is the intention of the grenade launcher. It's to force movement out of cover. If the Axis player is in both cover and at maximum range, then they deserve to win the engagement due to bringing better tools to the fight. But I think increasing the aim time will reduce the effectiveness of the grenade launcher blobs moving around on the open map in mass, which is what we've been seeing a bit, especially in team games. And this applies to Wehrmacht as well via the Luftwaffe call-in by the Fallschirm Pioneers. Now, I'm also aware that artillery is causing a lot of headaches, especially in team games, due to the barrage ability being independent on the cooldown from the Vet 1 ability. This was to discourage blobbing, but it may need to be reviewed. It does lead to huge artillery saturation, which are instantly killing squads, in particular the culprits being the Bishop and the Stuka. I'd be curious to see how the game would flow with my suggested changes prior to changing the independent cooldown, primarily as by reducing the effectiveness of damage reduction and cloaking, it will enable other light vehicles and medium tanks to have an increased role in the game, which are the best units to counter the mechanized artillery platforms. I'm confident in 1v1s, the independent cooldowns do not negatively impact the game, but they do heavily influence team games. Like everything in balance, it does take some trial and error and data collection, and I feel this is one of those cases. And with that said, that's my suggested changes for the upcoming Opal Scorpion patch, or to be considered in the future after that as well. As a player that enjoys all the factions and off-meta play enthusiast, I hope the next patch does lead to increased viability of builds outside the high tempo and minimal tech investment that we've been seeing in the 2.0 series patches. It's been a good patch nonetheless, so I have enjoyed it, and I think with every patch we've been getting in, CoH3's been leading to a step-by-step improvement, which is great. What are your thoughts on balance? Let's start up the discussion in the comments. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye!